Okay, so let's talk about something that I occasionally talk about, which is it's what I call the garbage farting machine, which is all of these large language models and diffusion models and just generative algorithmic systems that come out that people are using to fart out garbage. You can probably guess that I'm not a fan. So the whole issue with these things is that in order to get an incremental improvement in the output, you need a geometric increase in the input, which is to say, if you want the output to be 10% better, you're going to need to put twice as much training data into the machine. We don't have twice as much training data. It doesn't exist. Okay? So we're at a standstill with this technology until we can get more training data. And the problem is everybody's pushing and pushing and pushing and saying, hey, instead of doing this yourself, which would produce more training data, why don't you use the garbage farting machine to do it instead? Well, you can't put the garbage farting machine's input back into the garbage farting machine. It's just when you make something with the garbage farting machine, you can't use that to train the garbage farting machine. It doesn't work. You can't connect the output to the input because, in case you forgot, it's not good. You don't want feedback. Feedback is not a thing that you want in any of your development processes. Well, not this type of feedback anyway. Feedback from your audience, sure. Feedback from your development process, no. Not a thing that you want. And because we're generating so much content with the garbage farting machine, it's become an almost intractable problem to separate the human-generated content from the machine-generated content, which means training the machine has become a much larger job than it needed to be. And on top of that, this is the really fun part, okay? All of the stuff that people are demanding the garbage farting machine do a better job of making, all of that stuff, the stuff people really want to use the machine to make, they're using the machine to make it. And they're going, it's pretty good, but we'd like it to be better. Well, you're generating so much crap that nobody's generating this themselves. You're generating so much garbage that we don't have real human-generated content to feed in and train the machine. So we're not going to make it better at the things you want. We have to make it better at things you don't want, because those are the only things that you're not already crapping up the training data for. And that's before we even get into the question of Glaze and Nightshade, which are actively poisoning the training data. This bubble is going to burst, and it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty at all. And the machine already can't really take your job. Anybody that fired you because they could use the machine instead of you to do your job, either you really suck at your job or the machine's incapable of doing it. And when those people call you back and say, hey, we need you to come back in, laugh at them and say no. Don't let them do it. But, yeah, you don't need to worry about this. You're not going to lose your job to this shit, because the only people that are firing anybody and replacing them with the garbage farting machine are idiots. They're people who don't respect you and don't value your work in the first place. And because they don't respect you and don't value your work, don't work for them. Just don't. Do not work for them. Now, one of the things that I've seen a number of people complain about is that they used to tell us, get a degree and then you'll be able to get a good job. And then they started saying, learn to code and you'll be able to get a good job. And what the fuck? We got our degrees and we couldn't get a good job. And we learned to code and we still couldn't get a good job. The problem is that both of these, getting degrees and learning to code, are they're heuristics, and it's what we call in economics a signaling device. A university degree does not get you a job because you have a piece of paper. It gets you a job because in order to get the university degree, you had to have certain qualities. Specifically, you had to be conscientious and hardworking. You had to pay attention. You had to do as you were told. You had to meet deadlines. You had to get up on time. You had to go to class. You had to attend the lecture and pay enough attention that you could do the assignment and turn it in on time so you got a good grade. Then you had to go and take tests, and you had to be put on the spot and asked to solve problems, and you could do it. All of that is valuable to an employer. What's not valuable to an employer, and you could already do this in the mid-'80s when I went to university, is when you go to the guy that everybody knows on campus and you go, dude, I couldn't make it to lecture on this day for this class. Well, let me get the tape. Because there was always a guy selling recorded lectures for every fucking class. If you paid a little extra, he'd give you a copy of his notes. If you paid a little extra, he'd do your homework. And what it came down to was, for about $100 a credit hour, you could have somebody else do the work for you, and you didn't have to do it. You could pay other people to take the test for you, for God's sake. And at the end of it, you would have paid about $10,000, and you would have a bachelor's degree in whatever field you wanted, and you didn't go to any of the classes, and you didn't learn any of the stuff you were supposed to learn, and you didn't have to get up early, and you didn't have to go to class, and you didn't have to pay attention, and you didn't have to do the work. That's what killed university degrees getting you a good job. That's what the problem was on that. My trim is still a little bit high on this. I'm going to drop it down a bit. And when it came to learning to code, it used to be that learning to code meant you had to solve a series of fairly baffling problems just to get your code to run. Well, that's not the case anymore, okay? Because you've got all of these people that are working in JavaScript. JavaScript is an interpreted language, not a compiled language, so you don't need to get your compiler to work, and you don't need to get your linker to work, and you don't need to get your system configured, because you just throw the code in a browser and it runs. So there's a lot of stuff you don't need to do anymore. And you can just go to Stack Overflow and copy and paste the code for most things that you might need to do, especially when we're talking about undergrad assignments. You don't need to know much of anything to learn how to code anymore. So when companies are looking for somebody that's conscientious and hardworking and knows how to solve baffling problems, you may have a degree and know how to code, but those don't mean you're conscientious and hardworking and can solve the problems. It doesn't mean what the employers were using it to mean. So it doesn't get you the job anymore. Because employers know it doesn't mean that anymore. They hired way too many people that have a university degree and can't seem to get their shit together. They hired way too many people that know how to code, but you ask them to solve a fairly simple problem, and they have no idea where to begin. They're searching the internet and going, how do I do this? And everybody's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What do you mean, how do I do this? What are you doing with that job if you can't do this? too many fucking people in that boat. Too many fucking people that that just didn't do the work. And having not done the work, they go out and say, I showed up, give me the job. Showing up is important, but showing up is just the beginning. Showing up to get your diploma, that's not the showing up that matters. Showing up to do the work is the showing up that matters. And with that said, I am now going to clean off my screen, and we're going to go and do ourselves some art. I have had kind of a crisis the past few days, thinking about stuff, the past week, really, because fundamentally, the balancing of writing code and practicing art has been difficult to accomplish. And because it's been difficult to accomplish, I haven't been doing a good job of it. Because I always feel like I should be doing the other thing. It's like when I'm writing code, I'm like, I should be working on my art. And when I'm working on my art, I'm like, I should be writing code. And sometimes when I'm working on either one of them, I go, I should be trying to do the music. And it's really frustrating because it leaves me constantly feeling like I'm doing the wrong thing. Like no matter what I do, it's the wrong thing. And I don't like that. But one of the things that I have that I've been kind of looking at over the course of the past week is that I try to get things done too fast. And I need to slow down. So, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to kind of rough in some hand shapes. You can see over here on the side I've got like hand reference that I've been looking at. Let's kind of rough out some basics there of a hand. I'm not very good at hands, but then nobody's very good at hands. This is was far too large. Let's pull that back there. Let's start with just the let's start with just these general carpals right here. There would be a knuckle, and there would be a knuckle. And there's one, and there's a fairly prominent foreknuckle, the index finger. So we can now place the now this is actually where the fingers bend. So right here and right here. The fingers aren't as long as you think they are. From this perspective, and that's kind of the problem. They're not as deep either, and there's that one there. That's not very good. Let's try to fix that. I'm not doing a very good job, but I am showing up and trying to get shit done. Did a little YouTube dance, of course. Like, comment, subscribe. Hit the little bell icon. I feel like my trim is still up higher than it usually is. Let me drop it down a bit. Just looking at the just looking at the output on my audio meter, looks a little bit high. There's a little bone that sticks out here at the edge of the wrist. So let's rough out where we want the individual fingers. You know what? We got kind of this rhythm here. So let's exaggerate that a bit there. And we got to project that down. So project that down, and we'll project that down, and then we can come out here. This is not the way I typically draw hands, but I'm trying to alter the way I draw hands because I suck at them. About right, and that's a little bit short there. Yeah, fingernail is kind of important. I am not liking the shape of this, but let's look at that. If I look at the length of that finger there, it's a little bit long compared to the because that's the thing, the finger really kind of comes underneath of here, and then there's the thumb right in here. Not liking this at all. The deep perspective is kind of a problem, I think. Let's redo that. Actually, let's we can convert the layer, right? Convert layer. Convert it to a vector layer. I'm going to call this Sketch 2. Go OK, and then we'll change the layer color over here. There we go. All right. Now we can turn off that old layer. Let's go with just a fairly simple structure. Now, that I think should come in right at the, that should come in right at the bend right there, which means that is our line of action for the bottom. Now we divide that in half and divide that in half, and here is kind of the peak of that that arc that we want to have right there. Clean that up. That's a bit too much of a peak. And just do it like that. And then we want that to be a little bit more pronounced here, a little more pronounced here, and a little more pronounced here. So there is kind of the, there's kind of the first finger right there, and the second finger right there, third finger, and the fourth finger. That actually needs to swoop down much more, so I'm going to pull that down right around here. I feel like the proportions are more accurate on that, at least. Think a little bit about this. We want to show the curvature there. And let's come over here to our construction layer and go, yeah, that is kind of flat on the top and round on the bottom, like so. And same thing here. This has got to be fairly thick through the middle. It's kind of curved on the bottom. Here again, and we've got flat and curved, flat and curved, flat and curved. And it's going to kind of round over at this point because, again, flat, curved, flat, curved, flat, curved. This is going to kind of roll over. That's something that I didn't really reflect here. Flat and a bit of a curve, flat with a bit of a curve. There's a webbing between the fingers. That's on the bottom. So we have kind of a line arc. We have kind of a line arc thing going on. And then here we've got the carpal, and there's the webbing there. And there'll be kind of a round flat there, round flat there, and round flat there. That's not terrible. This one, the webbing is kind of, it comes across and overlaps in that direction. This comes down here. We've got that kind of, we've got that ulnar prominence there. And this is a right hand, actually, so what we're looking at is that bit right there. Let's do that there. I don't feel like this side is accurate. This should stick off to the side a bit. Shouldn't? Yeah, it should just kind of stick off to the side, and then the wrist is kind of in that area. I'm not good with hands, but then nobody is really good with hands. At first, anyway. Nobody starts out good with hands. They have to start out being kind of shitty. I've been reading Fedogazzi's book, I think. Yeah, Jack Fedogazzi. And and he has a lot of stuff to say about locating the planes and whatnot. I may not be that good at hands, but I know how many fingers go on them, which is more than the garbage farting machine knows. I think about something here. If we start with a kind of that's about right, isn't it? That should come in there. Should come in there. This should come. That's too long. I've made both of those too long. So that should probably tap out right about there, and this that should probably kick out right here. So that would kind of, that's still too big. So more like here. And then that would kind of come in there. Is that right? You've always got your own hand for reference when you're working on hands. That should come out right around there. Sand still looks a little bit long, but I think this isn't terrible. Obviously, the next chapter is feet. You gotta look at feet. Can't do art on the internet if you're not doing feet. Simple way to draw seemingly complex arrangement. Yeah, well, I've done my 20 minutes, I think. Yeah. Got it right there. I got my work time is at 21 minutes. That's good enough. I showed up. I did some shit. I don't know. Do a little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit. And don't worry about the machine taking your job. If the machine takes your job, you suck at your job anyway. And if you don't suck at your job, your boss sucks. So, fuck that boss. Go work for somebody else.